if you're planning to visit Ireland, consider going somewhere else. Replan, reimagine, because it might be a little bit problematic to go there. Apparently, they passed a new bill, which is one of the worst crackdown on human rights that I have ever seen. And it's incredibly ambiguous. It's like the Twitter Trust and Safety Council, not the current one, the previous one, would have made legislation. Like huge gray area where if you possess material that is likely to incite violence, you would have to prove that you weren't going to use it. So you're considered guilty, and you have to prove that you weren't going to show it to the public, because otherwise you can go to prison. Even the Trotskyist people before profit opposed it as a flagrant violation of civil liberties. Like, they had the 2 amendments, which would have made the law less radical. They voted them down. I mean, look at this, right? Like, so, prepare or possesses material that is likely to incite violence or hatred against a person or a group. They do not mention what these materials are, and I have looked what the media considers to be some of these materials. The OK sign, milk, it's okay to be white stickers. South Park episodes are already over the line. Like, I think if you possess South Park episodes, you may be in violation. I mean, there's a lot of jokes in the previous seasons about Jewish people, black people, like South Park jokes about everyone. And if you have a South Park episode, right, it depends, I guess, on the judge who interprets this, and you would have to prove that you weren't going to show it to the public, right? Please explain to me if I'm reading this wrong. Right? Like, who gets to decide what is a material that is likely to incite violence? The George Floyd tape. If you have that, is it a material likely to incite violence? And if yes, can you show it? Police officers beating up an innocent person. Is that material likely to incite violence or hatred against a person or group? Are you allowed to be shown it? But again, even if you have it on your computer, right? So you may not want to show it. You just keep it to yourself. Now you have to prove that you weren't going to show it. Like, this is one of the most radical laws that I have seen, and you don't have it in other countries in Europe at all. But again, like, the problem is, I don't care what people in Ireland do, you know, to themselves. Like, if they want to live like this, that's fine. But the problem is if you want to travel there, right? Like, if you have an edgy account, again, take it to consideration. Pepe the Frog is problematic. Count Dankula trading his dog for a comedy skit is problematic, but that was in Scotland. Now, if I was Count Dankula, I wouldn't go to Ireland. I think, like, Ireland is a little bit more radical than Scotland at this point. It's very interesting because the punishment, right, is fine or imprisonment. Like, you can go 2 years in prison for this. Like, Germany used to have similar laws, right? It still does, but, like, at least they were just explicit on what they banned, right? So we're banning Nazi symbols. What are those? Well, the swastika, the lightning, the blah, 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 right? Like, they would go through a list of things that you're not allowed to show in public. So people were like, okay, well, we're not allowed to show this. You may agree or disagree, but it was like, okay, well, if you have a manga which has the Buddhist symbol, the manga gets banned. If you have a video game like Wolfenstein, the video game gets banned. Like, that actually happened in Germany. But you knew the things that weren't allowed. This is ambiguous, right? Like, incite violence or hatred. So if a feminist goes on Twitter and says that all men are rapists. I mean, there was a hashtag like that, and it trended for several years. Is that inciting to violence or hatred? If a feminist goes on Twitter and gives the dictionary definition of what is a woman, is that inciting to violence or hatred? Do you see the problem? And again, like, having it on your computer, even if you're not sharing it with anyone, if you just have it downloaded, then you can actually get prosecuted. You can then go to court, and you have to prove that you were just holding it for your own viewing pleasure, and you weren't going to share it around. You weren't the meme factory, willing to share it over the internet. I love the fact, you know, like, when they talk about healthcare as a human right, it amuses me because the left pisses on human rights constantly. It's like the right to free speech is a human right. It's in the UN Charter, right? Um, this, and also the right of innocent until proven guilty. That's also another right. Because if you're going to assume, like, okay, so this person has a Pepe meme, he is going to share it with the internet. We must stop it. We must send the Terminator back in time to prevent him from pressing enter on the keyboard. Then, how can the person prove that they weren't going to do it? There's no way, right? So, yeah, I mean, almost everyone that I've seen was upset by this. I don't know how the people of Ireland feel about it. I think like they don't read the legislation, or at least they have faith that the legislation is going to actually be applied in goodwill. That they believe that the government is actually going to go after literal extremists, and they're not going to cherry pick, go after people that are just inconvenience for the government. Like, for example, when you have the lockdowns, right? You have the lockdowns, people are losing their businesses, they're losing their livelihoods, they're going out to protest, and it just so happens that the Secret Services found out, oh, well, this guy has a meme, like, we can't arrest him for protesting, because it looks bad, but we can arrest him for, like, sharing evil Pepe memes, okay signs. Oh my god, he may have some stickers, right? This is ridiculous. I mean, imagine how our parents lived without this type of legislation. Now, sure, they didn't have the internet, but they used graffiti, they used stickers, they used posters, they used the mail. And I don't remember my parents having the... Well, my parents did, but like people from UK or Ireland, like having their mail looked through. It's like, oh, well, the postal office needs to check the correspondence that you sent to make absolutely sure that you didn't send anything offensive. Or we need to listen into your telephones. We need to make sure that when you speak on the phone with mommy and daddy, you're not saying something offensive. How did they manage to do it? Like the press. Was the press actually suppressed like this back in the days of your parents? Like for example, if I had a publication, a newspaper, and I would post the OK sign in it, would I have problems with the government? Would I get arrested in Ireland? Like, that's another question that needs to be answered, right? Like, how did people in the past manage to live without this type of draconian legislation? When it's literally thought policing. Like thought policing used to be a negative that we would use for authoritarian governments, but now it's like, well, what were you thinking? Were you thinking of publishing it to the public or not? And again, it's Ireland, right? Like, does Ireland really have a problem with extremism to this level that they need this legislation? Like, this level of crackdown? I don't know. It's interesting, though. Also, I love the fact it's like arbitrary characteristics that are protected. Notice how nationalism is not a characteristic that's protected, ever. Or patriotism. Or, any of these things. No, they're never protected. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you in the comment section. Take care.